Now it's time to get rich and decadent with my cheddar shortbread that I use as the crust for my cheddar cheesecake. And that's exactly where I'd like to start, with this cheddar shortbread. I'll start off by measuring 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour into my food processor. There we go. I add just a touch of sugar, a tablespoon. It's not so much for sweetness, but it keeps the shortbread nice and tender. 1/4 teaspoon of ground pepper. There we go. Now my butter and cheese. I have 1/2 cup of unsalted butter that I've cut into pieces. I'll give this a pulse first. And once you no longer see visible pieces of butter, like right now, then you can add your cheese. I have 8 ounces of grated cheese. Now I'll pulse in the cheddar. There we go. I can see the cheese breaking down into the dough, so now I can turn the food processor on and let the dough come together. This is a real gem of a cheddar shortbread recipe because you can work with it right from the food processor. You don't have to chill it down. I'll give it a little dusting of flour. Before I start rolling, I'll grab my pan. I have an 8-inch removable bottom fluted pan, so the shortbread becomes the crust for it. You can really see how soft and pliable and rich this dough is. This cheddar cheesecake is a dish I like to serve either for brunch or as a starter course. I don't roll my cheddar shortbread crust as thinly as I would, say, a pie dough. It is super tender. And I think I'll fold it, lift it. Use my rolling pin to trim the edges. So at this point, you need to pop this in the fridge to chill it and set it. That way, when you bake it, the sides of the crust will stay in place. And here it is chilled. Now, before it goes into the oven, you need to dock the bottom of the crust. This way, the air gets in there, cooks the shortbread all the way through, and then you won't get any air pockets either. There we go. I've preheated my oven to 350, and this takes about 30 minutes to bake. If it turns a light brown around the edges, that's absolutely fine. While that delicious crust bakes, I can get to work on my cheddar cheesecake filling. And I'm gonna start with, of all things, onions. So I'll melt a little butter in a pan, and I've got a medium cooking onion, just sliced up. I'll add that to the pot. I have chopped thyme. Good caramelized onions are something you can't rush. You can't put the heat on high and get them done in 5 minutes. Those are burnt onions. So these onions can take, 20, 25 minutes, even longer. And when you see these little sticky bits at the bottom of the pan, don't worry. The last ingredient I add will pull them up because that's where all the flavor lives. I have balsamic vinegar here, so I'm just gonna add a splash. And the acidity deglazes the pan. Oh, and it smells so good. Gorgeous. As soon as you see the liquid has evaporated, you can take the onions off the heat, and I'll let those cool down, and it's time to go check on that crust. Beautiful. Now, you can't put a filling inside a warm tart shell. So I'm actually gonna let this cool completely, along with those caramelized onions, and before you know it, I'll be building that beautiful cheddar cheesecake. My cheddar shortbread crust has cooled, so now it's time for the cheddar cheesecake filling. And it really does start out the same way you make a sweet cheesecake, with a package of cream cheese. I've softened it to room temperature, and now just smoothing it out a little bit. I don't add sugar to my cheesecake filling like a sweet one, but you do need egg. In this case, 1 egg yolk and 1 whole egg. I'll separate my yolk first. And I'll work that in before I add the whole egg. In goes the whole egg. There we go. Now this cream cheese base is really just an excuse to hold in the cheddar cheese. I have 6 ounces of cheddar cheese. I'll stir that in. And for a little pop of color, I've got 2 tablespoons of Italian parsley that I chopped up. And let's not forget about those balsamic glazed caramelized onions. What a divine combination. Oh, it smells so good. Now all of this goes right into my cooled cheddar shortbread crust. I'll give it a little spread right to the edges. So this is sort of like quiche meets cheesecake. Here it's all about the cheese. I'm all set for the oven. It's still at 350, the same temperature I baked the crust, and it takes 35 to 40 minutes. This looks incredible. So I've had this cooling for a few minutes. And you can see after it comes out of the oven, it does settle into place, but it doesn't crack. Now let's see. The outside has cooled to touch a little bit, so I'm gonna take it out of its pan and carefully lift it onto a plate. This cheesecake is delicious, whether it's served warm or at room temperature. And you can make it ahead of time and reheat it just to melt that cheese in the center again. Ooh, do you hear that crunch of the cheddar shortbread crust? Nice, delicate, slender piece because it is rich. Oh, I love that crisp cheddar shortbread crust holding the cheesecake filling. You can see the melted cheddar in there and the balsamic caramelized onions. What a perfect way to serve cheese and crackers. It is just like cheese and crackers, except better. Oh, it's just so good.